Join occupational therapist and Key Creative CEO Jon Jon Rivero as he shares the history of how Key Creative was founded. You'll also hear more about our mission and vision and the scope of what we'll be covering this season. Stay tuned, it's time for Key Talks. So welcome to Key Talks. Whether this is your first podcast or maybe your 50th out there, we are so glad you're here with us today. And my name is Deanna Halls, and I'm Key Creative's Communications Director, and I'm a professional human ecologist. To my right today is also my co-host, Paula Audrey Rivero, Key Creative's Chief Operating Officer.
And me over here, I'm Michael Schwake. I'm the Chief Technical Officer and also just general IT and sound. So making things sound beautiful and look beautiful.
So I am super excited to be here. This is my first time hosting a podcast. And I think your first time as well, right, Deanna?
Yeah, I've guested before, but I've never been like a host like this.
So we're two brand new hosts. We're excited to have you guys along for the journey with us. It's all going to be learning and growing, so we'll all be doing it together. We're excited to share some great content with everyone in our community. And I'm feeling a little nervous, but mostly excited, especially that today we're going to be talking with the founder. Deanna, do you want to introduce him?
We figured we'd start with none other than Jon Jon Rivero, Chief Executive Officer and founder of Key Creative.
Woo!
Here's Jon Jon. Hi, everybody. Nice to see everyone. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. We are happy to have you.
It was a little awkward hanging out in the green room by myself, but it's great to be here. Everyone looks so great. Thanks for having me.
We tried our best for the first time here. Dressed for success, right, Deanna?
Why don't we start at the beginning? Because we always start with a good story. So Jon Jon,
with a good story.
Yes.
Tell us the story of Key Creative and how we got to where we are today.
You know, Deanna, that's a great question. And I was thinking about that question today and last week. And I went down a wormhole because, as you know, I like to talk and my brain goes in so many different ways and tangents. So I'm going to do my best to give us the best Cole's Notes version of how Key Creative started.
And I'm going to keep him on track, everybody. So don't worry about that.
Thanks, Paula. I started off at the Center for Autism Services Alberta, which is a great organization that gave me a chance as an occupational therapist. And I was given so many opportunities to basically take an idea of something that I love, basically martial arts, taekwondo, or acting, drama, theater, and be able to incorporate it in a playful way and basically create a very, very specific niche as an occupational therapist. And so for the first 2 or 3 years of my practice, I was given this opportunity to create these groups. And they allowed me to create the Young Master Club, which is an adaptive taekwondo program. And the reason that's important to me is because I grew up using martial arts as a way to help engage my father, who had a brain tumor. And little did I know that would be basically a career that in and of itself to use adapted martial arts to help children living with autism. And so I feel like I was given a golden ticket. Like I was given a golden ticket in the sense that they allowed me to express a talent of mine and incorporate it into my occupational therapy practice. And so I was given a little bit, and then I went for more. So, you know, the saying, you give an inch, and then, you know, you go for more. And so I went for more, and I created a program with some colleagues there called Kids Closet, which taught dressing to children and their families through the use of theater and going into different personas, different theme rooms, dress for different climates and different adventures, basically. And so I was able to put on a persona. I'm an actor, and loved the opportunity to perform. In and of itself, I guess my spirit wants to perform for an audience. And I had the opportunity to do that with children, with our clients, so children with autism and their families, and they loved it. And luckily they didn't fire me. And so I started, I guess, grasping on to this idea that, hey, I am more than my profession. I'm of course, before I was an OT, I was a martial artist, and I still am. I'm an actor, I'm a musician. And I thought to myself, well, how can I incorporate those aspects of me into my practice? And the Center for Autism allowed me to basically create my own job description and run these groups with some incredible colleagues. Well, one night I got really enthusiastic, shall we say, and I had a Jerry Maguire moment. And for those of us, and I know Deanna, you'd mentioned you hadn't seen Jerry Maguire, and that's okay.
No.
It's a good movie. I think it's a good movie.
John and I are becoming old school.
Yeah, show me the money is the tagline for Cuba Gooding Jr., right? But basically, it's about Tom Cruise and his career at the top of his career as a talent agent, or sorry, as an athlete. Professional athlete agent, and he's losing all these clients because he wrote this. He's focusing only on maybe one or two popular athletes at the time, and he's starting to lose his connection and his relationship to the people that invested in him and believed in him as an agent to represent him. So
you guys can look up the synopsis.
No, but it's important.
Jerry Maguire.
It's important to talk about.
It's totally important to talk about, and I think like the thing that I remember, John, is that you were pushing the boundaries. And I think that's what Jerry Maguire was doing also, is he was innovating, he was creating on a different level than other people. And I saw you doing that. And you really put yourself out there vulnerably, crossing your fingers, hoping for the best. And I mean, you take it from there. What happened next?
There was a moment that, and the reason why I call it the Jerry Maguire moment is because he started remembering why he decided to go into the profession in the first place. And he wrote this essay, if you will, more maybe a business plan or maybe some ideas. It's a little vague in my memory, but he wrote these ideas of how an agent should treat their athletes, basically. And he wrote it. It was controversial and put it in the entire firm's mailboxes. And the next day, and I'm sure he stepped on people's toes, at least this is how I remember the movie, he lost pretty much all of his supporters except for one, and that was Cuba Gooding Jr., who
Show me the money.
Yeah. So the reason why I bring that up, I had a similar moment where I believe we were doing awesome work, and we continue. Everyone has different philosophies on how we learn, and I believed that we were working on a lot of splinter skills. We were working on a lot of discrete trial, which is basically sit down and pick red, and then if you get red, you get a Skittle. It's like ABA, adaptive behavior analysis, right? And I felt that that had a lot of research. It's great, but it just didn't sit well with me. It wasn't resonating with me as a form of therapy, and so I basically wrote a business plan. And I had all these ideas about using kids' strengths. Let's get away from the tables and let's start doing activities like Taekwondo. Let's incorporate, the learning is through the natural activities of daily living and the leisure exercises and activities, the occupations that give people meaning. At the time, I had kids who were so brilliant with memorizing Disney scripts auditorily or visually remembering all the credits, and that's what they would draw, and you couldn't get them to do anything else. And I said, well, my idea was, well, why fight that? How could we use that in therapy? So just ideas like that, and then incorporating more of like a one team approach, right? And having the child be at the center. And so that's not anything new, but what was different about what I was writing was OT at the time wasn't focused on that. It was focused on a lot of printing. It was a lot of cut on this line, and fine motor skills was basically the lane that people wanted us to fit in. And I ended up writing this long, but very valuable in my mind, therapy plan and idea. And I obviously also got into perhaps the restructuring of a team. And it was very much hierarchical. And so I thought, well, we shouldn't have a hierarchy. The person, it should be concentric, should be circular. And I don't know if I was even eloquent enough, but I wrote it. I sent it off to all the consultants, and I printed it off, and I put it into everyone's mailbox. And I thought, oh, here we go. I'm like Jerry Maguire. I'm writing my modus operandi.
You know what, John? It's funny because I was dating John at the time. And for those of you viewers who don't know, we are married. And we've been together since 2006. And it was right around that time we were doing long distance. I was living in Kelowna. John was here in Edmonton. And I was out visiting you during that time, right? Or had I moved here already?
Oh, yeah, I hadn't moved yet.
Okay, so I was visiting, and I remember you telling me this, and I could not even fathom or grasp what he was telling me, but I remember you coming home and being like, I put these things in everyone's mailbox, and they're going to wake up in the morning and they're going to see them. And I'm like, oh yeah, no big deal. Like, it's all good. Like, I had no idea. But when you tell it now, it's like, oh my gosh, like you really put yourself out there. And I think it was really brave and courageous of you to do that. And now that I know what has come from you doing that and the courage I think that it's given you, I mean, it's been inspirational. I think that's what's inspired a lot of people to join with you and become part of this team. So
yeah,
kind of cool.
And what ended up happening was I woke up late because I stayed up late at the center, writing these ideas. And I basically had a proposal for the OT department to leave the Center for Autism. Because the SLP department had left the Center for Autism and started their own practice and was now working as consultants. And that's what my vision was. Well, the only way for this to work is if we leave. And it was almost like a proposal for that. Anyways, I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, what time? I'm late. I have a meeting. And I get to the office, and I remember the awesome receptionist say, Jon, they're waiting for you in the boardroom. And I instantly thought, oh my gosh, I just made a huge mistake. Like, I basically told the Center for Autism that my ideas, the only way it's going to work is if I take all the OTs and we're going to leave as an OT organization. And what am I going to do now? Like, I'm telling them basically, this is the way I think, this is the way OT should work within this organization. And luckily, I sit down and all the consultants are there. They're so kind and loving. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get fired right here, right now on the spot. And everyone looked at me like, yeah, thanks for this proposal. This is great. I'm like, really? So I'm not fired? Basically, I'm thinking I'm like waiting for the shoe to drop. And they're like, no, like, this is great. And you're going to have to start to think about maybe you start your own practice, basically. And I was like, well, no, I'm not trying to start my own. Well, I guess I am, because I'm proposing that the OTs, and I'm like, oh no, that's not what I meant. You know, that's not what I'm trying to do. But then it made me realize, you know, maybe I can start my own practice. Right. And that moment, I remember coming to Paula and saying, well, what do I do? Right. And I basically came back to them and said, I'm going to give myself a year. I'll continue to be the lead of the OT department at the Center for Autism and do the best job that I can leading that. And within a year, if I can build enough clients in the rural community, because that's where Key Creative had its roots, I will part ways and start a new journey and new adventure.
I think it's important and interesting for the viewers to know that during that time, Jon was working as a rural therapist while he was also working at the Center for Autism. And he was sought out to do that because there weren't any clinicians locally or within Edmonton that were actually providing the service out to the rural communities. They were actually flying people in
from
California, for example. So Jon was taking on clients, one by one here, and it was building to 5 clients to 10 clients. And I remember us sitting down and being like, you asking me, and I'm like, well, things look good on paper. I mean, why not? Like, let's do it. And so I remember that conversation quite vividly. And again, not realizing what we were getting into, but knowing how talented you were and how skilled and courageous and bold you were in your vision. So
thanks, Paula. I basically had a full-time job Monday to Friday with the Center for Autism, running groups and leading the OT department. And then on the weekends would see 4 or 5 clients on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Do like a 15 to 20 hour day.
Yeah.
And that would be for a whole year. And then eventually I realized, and Paula helped me realize, that the caseload that I had on the weekend, and I'd be hustling, busting my butt, driving out to Whitecourt, driving to San Gudo and Mayerthorpe and service a lot of those families in the rural communities. I had just as much income, doing rural private practice as I did, doing my Monday to Friday work at the Center for Autism. And the Center for Autism, and thank God for them, and some incredible mentors, allowed me and encouraged me to still, to have that practice, and because it wasn't in competition with the center. So that gave me the confidence to go full force. And so just to backtrack a little bit more, because a lot of it was about confidence.
Yeah.
I
think people have to remember, like, you were a 25-year-old young man,
23 even,
23, like navigating, these two worlds and being like, do I have enough to cover X, Y, Z on my, and we're like, oh, I think you might have more than enough. Like, this could be doable. It may, when we were in that moment, I had done a bachelor in business admin. And at that point I was actually going through a career change. And it was a bachelor in business admin. And I thought, I can help you. Like, I have some knowledge in this area with administration and running a business. And, we can do this. Like, if I help you on the back end with like the invoicing and accounts receivable and just organizing all these papers that you have, and just some of really those basic things. But we were really 2 kids, 24 years old, like navigating a new world and really just going, I feel, we were working from our hearts at that point.
Yeah. So going back to that, if you didn't have that business background and that push for me to start my own practice, I don't think I would have. Because there are my colleagues at the time had plus 15, 30 years. I was actually invited. This is one of the milestones of how I started to get more confidence. In 2006, my second year of practice, I received the Sunrise Therapist Award, which was awarded by the Alberta Council of Rehabilitation Medicine to a therapist, whether it's OT, SLP, or PT, who has contributed the most to the profession within their first 5 years of practice. Now, I didn't think I was even nominated, but my colleagues at the Center for Autism nominated me. And because of that, because I got this award, the MDT panel of Alberta, of FSCD, also recognized me as an expert. And really, to be honest, I really didn't know what I was doing other than combining what I knew, martial arts, play and theater, with play therapy and occupational therapy. And it was at that panel where I started to think, like, I don't know if I should be sitting here, because the panel was a group of people with minimum, 20 years of experience. I had some incredible psychologist mentors, SLP mentors, OT mentors, who were probably like, why are you on this panel? You just graduated 2 years ago. But anyways, luckily they took me under their wing, and it was at an actual panel meeting where we're recommending services to a client, and we're asking questions. We're trying to figure out how many, how is therapy working for this child? Are they eligible? We make recommendations to the province. And I didn't know the role. I was actually treating the client as if they were my client, and that's not the role of the MDT member. So this is how Key Creative, the moment where Key Creative actually started is when I get a call after that MDT panel from the FSCD supervisor in Whitecourt at the time, North Region, saying, wow, that family was so impressed with how you asked questions and how you were so engaged about what the child was interested in, what made them tick. They would like to hire you. Are you willing to go out to Whitecourt? And I said, where's Whitecourt? I work for the Center for Autism. I said, we would like you to consider supporting this family's specialized services program in Whitecourt, Alberta. And you could be the OT. And I that's when I talked to you, Paula, saying like, wow, they're asking me to start a private practice. I don't know what I'm doing. And you said, Paula, just do what you do in Edmonton, but do it in Whitecourt. So the confidence, if people didn't believe in me, I don't know if I would have believed in myself.
Yeah, and I think, Jon, something to recognize, and I think you recognize this now, and I think it's like for Key Creative and all of us, we resonate with this. Like there's a special energy and vibrancy that you bring to a room, and a kindness and a love that maybe you were younger, but I think people felt that new energy that was inspiring, right? And I think that's what Key Creative is based on. Like, if for those of you who don't know, Ki is actually pronounced chi. It's a Mandarin word. It means energy, and it's a life force that connects us all. And I think when you came to me with that, again, it kind of seemed distant from me in one way, but in another way, it really resonated. Like, we're all energy.
So when I was thinking about what name to call the company or the sole proprietor is now known as Key Creative, I wanted to incorporate some kind of energy. And I'm a martial artist, as you know, and one of the things I was really into at the time was Qigong and Tai Chi, as it relates to like healing, but also superhuman strength is kind of what I was thinking. And then I thought of our kids. I literally thought of our clients as children who have superhuman abilities. And I used to watch these videos of masters, whether they're fake or not, break boards with their fingers because they put chi in their fingers and they imagine their energy going into their fingers, and they break all these boards. And I saw these masters breaking multiple, like just feats of strength, and it really appealed to me. So I thought, okay, we got to incorporate some kind of chi, which is QI. And I'm like, wow, no organization's called, like in our industry is definitely not called chi. And I'm like, well, let's just call it chi. And I'm like, oh, wait a second. So I go on the database of Canadian corporations or trade names, and CHE was already incorporated. There's a CHE incorporated in Canada. So I thought, okay, well, I can't go CHE. But then I thought, well, we're all creative beings. Like, we all have different ways of learning, and we can come up with different ways to like express ourselves and connect with people. So I thought, well, okay, well, I'm not just a martial artist. I'm also a musician. I'm a performer. Like, everybody is like that. And I thought, well, our kids are like that. So I added the name creative to it. And then I thought, okay, well, I literally got one of those things from the register that says how to start your own company, right? And like, totally. This is what you should have, something that tells you what your name is. It's different, but also say what you do.
They're called starting a business for dummies. I think it's probably not appropriate anymore.
It might be called for dummies, but that wasn't the one I was looking at.
At the registry, they had the da-da-da for dummies.
Sure,
I don't know if those things are still available, but
that's probably the one exactly.
I know they have them at the AMA. I've seen them when I'm there. Yeah, they
is
have.
dummy
like,
still a term that is used? Okay,
That's
sorry,
another
John.
topic on an episode.
Totally is. Yeah, appropriate and inappropriate language. Stay tuned. John, side note, John has a party trick of superhuman strength. As you're speaking of superhuman strength, Mike, you know this.
Oh, I know, because I used to have the video on my YouTube channel, and John got me to take it down.
John can break the bottom off of a glass bottle with his elbow. So hitting the top of the bottle, and then the bottom of the glass bottle breaks off.
Yeah. So it's funny.
There's some
because you need to have liquid in there. You need to have liquid in there. And I think like it's a lot of people are like, oh, it's not chi, it's just physics. And it's true. There's physics. But
physics is energy.
As the resident physicist, I will say, yes, it is physics.
And so like people, Mike might. Okay, so sidebar. Mike made this this like video of me doing this in I think our friend Drew's backyard, and I was worried because it was getting a lot of views, and that's okay, that's fine. But I started Key Creative at the time, and people are like Googling my name, and the number one video is me taking a beer bottle that was filled with water, and then doing multiple attempts, and then finally it breaking with the bottom side. Anyways, so I kindly asked Mike, and Mike was so gracious to take it down. Because, maybe now it's fine for people to, I think I've built a name for myself, a brand for myself.
It doesn't have to be a beer bottle. I'll just say it can be any type of glass bottle. But
I think the only negative outcome of that whole thing was the fact that you ended up bruising your elbows, and Paula had to do the care for you afterwards for that. So
I was going to say there are some bruises involved.
When building a brand, like trying to build a Key Creative reputable brand that is professional and serves children across the province, it's probably not the best thing to have Jon Jon when they search Key Creative and this guy just breaking a bottle. I'm just saying. So that's why I asked. But maybe we can resurrect it, Mike. I don't know.
Stay tuned.
Maybe that could be like one of the side, like behind the scenes clips or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So let me finish the story. So the book, or the guide to starting your own business, said you should say what you do as well in the. So I'm like, okay, what do I do? Do we do therapy? Well, no, I don't want to write that. Consulting. We're consultants. So it was Key Creative Consulting.
That's right. I forgot
was the
about
first
that.
name, the trade name. And it eventually became Key Creative Inc. Incorporated. So anyways, that's how we created the name, how we created the name. And most people when reading it were like, what is Chi Creative? People who knew QI in Mandarin is Chi or Cantonese. Chi Creative, most people would say Ki or QI. And then I got another idea. I'm like, well, this is perfect, because the way that I personally looked at learning is intelligence comes in different ways. So people always test, and at the time, I mean, even today, they get IQ tests, and it's like, well, your IQ is much lower compared to your peers according to standardized testing. And that's great. That's all fine. However, I also believe that we have different types of intelligence. And so QI is also IQ backwards. We have creative intelligence, or we have different smarts, and our clients had different smarts.
That's always been something really empowering for me as someone who's probably a middle of the road IQ level person is knowing that IQ doesn't have to define how awesome you are, that it does come in different forms of intelligence. And so that always resonated with me. And I think why I connected so much, one of the reasons I connect so much with Key Creative is that we celebrate the diversity of intelligence. And it's not just one shoe makes the best shoe, right? It can be multiple shoes. That metaphor doesn't quite work, but I hope you get the gist of what I'm saying. Yeah, but totally. I love, and emotional intelligence, I feel in our work is so key, pun intended, to what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. So did you know that story, Deanna?
No, I did not, but it's very inspirational.
And Deanna's been around for how many years now?
Since 2016, but
2016.
Becoming acquainted with Key goes as far back as 2011.
Yeah.
Where I had just transferred into human ecology at the U of A. I'm 19. I barely know who I am, just like starting undergrad. And I had a vague notion of what occupational therapists do. And there was an OT career forum, at like 6 p.m. on a Wednesday at Corbett Hall. And I feel immediately unqualified once I'm sitting there. Because everybody else is at least 6 years ahead of me in their academic paths. Like they're about to be graduates of MSCOT and BOTs, look for places to work. And the first few speakers went through like, hey, my name is so-and-so. I work for Alberta Health Services. My name is so-and-so. I work for this agency. I drive around. I work with kids. It's great. Blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly it was Key Creative's turn, and two clinicians that I now know as Jon Jon and Eli came upon the stage. Jon Jon started with a poem, and Eli had this like latex Yoda mask that he put over his
In
face.
all Eli fashion. Gotta
And I
love
was
it.
like, what is this? Now, everyone else is like, hey, what's up? I'm an occupational therapist. This is how I do my work, and this is my day. But she was just creative energy flowing through our brains.
A new collective conscience being shared through our brains.
Tap into this beauty. You
Will
and
ne-
I will
never be the same. There's no time like the present. It's time to change.
How about change?
And John didn't bring his harmonica.
So Deanna, so yeah, you were there, and what caught your
tell us
attention?
more,
Like,
yeah,
tell us
tell
more.
us more.
Like, what did you
So
think?
that was that first time where I felt like some sort of equation, some sort of expectation was just smashed. Not just like, this is how kids can work with this adult, but like, this is how adults can work. And this was like a sort of meshing up of what work and play, like that can kind of be on a spectrum. I've studied recreation therapy with myself, of just like, this is so different, but it's all probably just as much, if not more effective, of like relating to human beings and knowing that not all success outcomes come from a sterile white table in a white room in a hospital.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what it was going to be. My minor was completely opposite in geriatrics.
Yes.
But it stayed in the back of my mind for all these different years of undergrad. And by the end, for human ecology specifically, you have to do a 400-hour practicum. And there's a lot of different places that human ecology students can do that. They can do that at, like, I think in the past we've had the Zebra Society's been in place. There's fashion merchandising. I think it's specifically like human ecology has two different distinct majors. One of them is like the family ecology, family studies, and the other one is clothing, textiles, and material culture. Because, clothing and textiles are considered a human environment. And that's another thing too. OTs are like buttoning and zippering and like accessible ways to get clothed.
Yeah.
Because we're not born knowing how to put a t-shirt on.
Yeah. You know that if you have a 1-year-old or 2-year-old, it's not so easy all the time. Or 3-year-old or 5-year-old or 6 or sometimes an adult. So you never know.
So by fourth year, the amazing Catherine Chandler at U of A connected with Jon Jon to figure this out. And that was like, you can either do it for the whole 4 months, fall or winter semester. I did it like every single day for spring semester, and then got graduated, enjoyed life a little bit. And then by 2016, I was hired.
So what kept you coming back?
What was coming back?
What was the thing that really inspired you to want to continue working with Key?
Oh, I think there's this like authentic, open-hearted presence, professionally and personally. And there's not like, you need to take this hat off and become the sterile professional when you walk in. Like I've never seen a more come as you are, heart on your sleeve way of relating that isn't artificial, that isn't like, I'm putting my mask on because I'm working with kids now. Like, no, like take that off and just be who you are. And that has always resonated with me ever since.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I feel like for me, John, I'd be interested how you feel hearing her say that, but it gives me like such pride as a organization to like hear you say that. And I feel the same way, like that we get to, or we celebrate being authentically who we are. And I think that's the greatest gift we can give to ourselves and to each other and to the people that we work with is being true to who we are and celebrating that. And then also the creating that, which kind of brings me to the create your awesome and the awesome that we use in our practice over and over and everywhere you look.
Oh yeah. I can speak another hour just about like disability culture too.
Yeah.
And just the different medical and social models of how we relate in respect to strengths and challenges with human bodies and brains and the environment around us. But that could be another time. That's my human ecology brain lighting up right now.
Wealth of knowledge right here, folks.
Yeah. And honestly, Deanna, when I met you on GoToMeeting, what is it, GoToMeeting when I first met
probably,
What's it
yeah.
go to?
That's what we use
I
back
remember
then.
Paula and I were in Jasper working on some service plans, servicing some the families out there. And I remember talking to you and just being amazed of all the skills that you had. And I had no idea what human ecology was. And you telling me just a little bit about what human ecology was, I knew immediately that you were very special and you were someone that I didn't know what type of role would be perfect for you just yet, but I knew that I was very fortunate to have been given the opportunity to be your preceptor. So, and now here we are, years later, you're our amazing professional human ecologist, as well as our communications director. So kudos to you.
And now podcast co-host.
And podcast host, yeah. Key Talks, exactly.
So, John, I wonder if we can bring it back. So you talked about starting your rural practice and getting that opportunity in White Court. Then what happened? Because now we have a team of 21 of us following this philosophy of creating meaningful learning and celebrating people's strengths and talents that make them awesome. And we're spreading that all over the province to hundreds of families and students within schools. How did we get there? Can you share a little bit?
Yeah. So at first I had to figure out how do I multiply my efforts because I was burning out quite quickly, going from home to home and then coming home at like midnight, waking up at 4 a.m. the next morning and doing it all over again. And so I reached out to Melissa Moe, amazing occupational therapist.
Shout out to Mo.
And Sam Patharana, one of my best friends and brothers, amazing occupational therapist who's now our clinical director. And they joined as consultants. And so we started dividing and conquering different areas of Alberta, north central. And then Paula, you decided to go on full-time in 2009, which helped so much create systems and administrative practice and policies and procedures for our practice. And eventually we started growing our practice through consulting. We had consultants that contracted with us, both SLPs, NOTs, and PTs. And at one point, you and I decided, well, if we're going to make a long-lasting, sustainable difference in the culture and the industry, we basically, and got ourselves trained in the most up-to-date at the time, and it gave us more confidence and better able to inform our practice.
And one thing on that I'll say, I mean, there was a lot of professional development, but I had alluded to a little bit earlier of the personal development. Like, our personal development was really pivotal in making sure that we could sustain what we were doing. A lot of the work that we did to ensure that we could create Key Creative was about ensuring that we were good with our own mental health, and taking care of that. And so a lot of our development was going to programs that focused on ourselves and making sure, like, who are we? What's our purpose? What pains and challenges are we dealing with? How can we create and overcome that and create success for ourselves? And I guess also unblocking maybe blockages that we had, and then working on our relationship, because if anyone who's in a business with their partner knows that creates a whole level of dynamic, and Mike probably can attest to that too.
And Deanna.
My lips are sealed.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation
that we work with incredible people who give us the space to navigate that aspect as well.
So professional development was a key part of Key Creative, no pun intended. Pun intended.
The key works in a lot of situations as being a key word.
We believe we are works
and talking about key concepts.
Yeah. So Key Creative, this is in a nutshell. So for those of you listening,
give us the nutshell.
We are perfectly imperfect beings living with challenges, all of us. And it's through the challenges and the resilient growth that we become awesome. And whether someone has a diagnosis or doesn't have a diagnosis, Key Creative believes that we can learn in different ways to hopefully address those challenges one by one and little by little, and find the just right challenge. What's the next just right challenge or the next step? And we do it together. We don't have to do it alone. And that's basically the philosophy. And how we've become, I guess, a practice is a lot of people have resonated behind that.
And then I think from that, the mission was created to be creating meaningful learning using people's strengths and talents that make them awesome. And my favorite part of the mission, celebrating the strengths and so creating meaningful learning with children, families, and schools living with all abilities and celebrating their strengths and talents that make them awesome. And then our vision being create your awesome. You may or may not notice or have noticed that we've intentionally capitalized that R. And the reason why being is that, yes, we can create our awesome. And that's part of our work as coaches and therapists working with children, families, and schools around the province. But we also believe you are awesome already. And that sometimes it's just about discovering or rediscovering the awesomeness that's inside of you. And that really excites me and inspired me actually to write the book, I Am Awesome, which we will be looking at next episode. And we'll talk a little bit more about that word awesome that we hear all the time. But for Key Creative, that word has really deep meaning and purpose. So we'll share a little bit more about that. John, were you going to add something?
Well, I just want to define awesome and what we mean by awesome.
Sure.
And when we talk about awesome, we think of the Merriam-Webster dictionary term or definition of awesome is creating or feelings of awe. And so then we go further, feelings of awe is fear and wonder. And then if you go a little deeper, fear and wonder is respecting something. And in this case, we say you are awesome. So someone who is amazing, surprising, beautiful, and powerful. So, and the challenge is why we exist is we may not always feel awesome or know that we're awesome or think that we're awesome or believe that we're awesome. And that's okay. That's okay. But for those who potentially might want to feel and discover they're awesome, Key Creative can help you with that journey just by creating meaningful learning and celebrating strengths and talents that are amazing, beautiful, surprising, and powerful.
Yeah.
Love it.
Love it. We're all drinking the Key juice over here.
Yeah.
So, Deanna, what can we expect from the next episodes? I shared that, likely next episode, we're going to be looking at the I Am Awesome book,
Yes.
talking about awesome, all things awesome, awesome, awesome. What else?
Well, just like how I've shared today about how I found Key and my journey in human ecology, I think a number of our colleagues here,
Yeah.
occupational, physical, speech therapists, all have their own unique edge, flavor into how they help kids here in Alberta.
Yeah.
So we're going to show up authentically as ourselves
Yeah.
and just all those really unique things that make each of our coaches amazing.
We have an amazing team. I am so excited for each person to have an opportunity to come on here and share that with our community. For example, Coach Connor, he's going to be coming on to talk about his new Key Adventure Club program, the role-playing games, which was featured on
The CBC.
on the CBC. They had a great story, which so grateful that they took the time to do that. And Connor and Devin had an opportunity to share a little bit there, but you'll get it here firsthand from Connor himself, and maybe Devin will join him too. Our brilliant coach, Lisa, who is a wealth of knowledge for any resource and resources related to supporting our clients. And she's going to come on and talk about a bunch of different books related to working with children on all different areas of mental health and all abilities and special needs. Which we're also going to talk about the term special needs, because as I'm saying it, I know that that's a topic that we've been discussing as an organization. So you can expect all things related to children, families, and schools living with all abilities. We want to create and celebrate people's awesomeness here. We want to talk about the challenges. And I think most importantly, we want to celebrate the awesome and look at how we can continue to overcome challenges by celebrating each person's authenticity. And what do you call it? Authenticity?
Authenticity, copyright, Jon Jon Rivero, 2016.
That's a plug. That's a plug. And you can always join us at keycreative.com to learn more about who we are, what we do, and why we do it. Yeah.
Thanks for having me as the first guest of the Key Talks. It's awesome. I'll show you what the whoosh looks like for those of you who don't have a visual reference on YouTube or the video. Imagine your fist being closed, and you're going to give someone a fist pump or a pound. And as you make contact, either physically or symbolically, you explode.
Open your fist.
Yeah, explode, and then come back into a fist and finish with a
now
pound
we
again.
can't forget the sound effects.
So it sounds like this.
Okay, that
so
go along
let me
with
explain. So you got the fist, and you go whoosh, and bring it back in. So you breathe in. So you do the whoosh, and you go whoosh.
Okay, so we're going to have Coach Devin come on our show and explain how to do the whoosh in a very simple way that he has taught us all, which I forget how to explain.
I always go with it's potatoes, fries, potatoes. So, yeah.
So you could do that. So,
Potatoes,
just to remind you,
fries,
it takes a little bit of coordination to be able to get the whoosh and then breathe in. So you're breathing out with the whoosh, breathe out like a whoosh, and then breathe in, go.
It takes practice.
It comes back in.
It does.
So,
Yeah.
Takes practice.
But so the acronym around whoosh is we offer opportunities serving hope. That's the official acronym. And other people, Mike has a different acronym for it.
Well, I just say it's a heartbeat in unison.
Yeah.
That's mine.
So that's a good way to think about it. But
Really what we want to know is, what does your whoosh look like?
well, it should look the same. It's just the meaning should be different, I guess. According, as long as it's anyways, don't change the whoosh. Don't change it.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Potatoes, fries, potatoes.
I just have one thing I want to say before we close up. Like if someone said to me 10 years ago, so 2013, that we'd be in this beautiful Key Creative headquarters space with amazing staff, incredibly talented talk show hosts, like podcast host Deanna, Paula, and a full-time chief technical officer working to produce amazing content, and to be able to let alone get to go out across Alberta and across province and travel to support families, I would have been dreaming. And so this is the dream. And from someone to tell me that, I'd be like, I won the lottery. So today I will say I've won the lottery as part of my own dream. That little boy inside thinking this is the dream. And so I want to say thank you to everyone here for making this a reality. And to everyone on our team and all our stakeholders. Like, this is incredible. And I'm so excited for this podcast, and I can't wait to see what it becomes and how many people we're able to reach with this. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John. We couldn't have asked for a better first guest, our founder and CEO, Jonathan Michael Rivero. You're an inspiration to us and to our viewers, and thank you for coming on Key Talks. Talk to you soon.
Let's whoosh it out.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Whoosh. Awesome.
Key Talks is a project of Key Creative. We hope you found this episode informative, thought-provoking, and enjoyable. To learn more about the topics covered in this episode, visit our website at keycreative.com. That's QICreative.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please consider leaving us a rating and review. It helps other people discover our show and lets us know what we're doing right. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time.